the Japanese, one of their just cultural things is pride and like taking pride in what they do and perfection of making the best quality thing that they can. So something I've noticed that's very interesting with the Japanese wine world is they're exploring using table grapes, premium quality table grapes, but a lot of the winemakers are not necessarily working with Vitis vinifera, and yet they're still coming out with these really beautiful wines.
Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. This is the next generation with me, McKenna Cassidy. For the next episode, I invite you to explore with me what young adults are up to in the Italian wine scene. Let's feast on our discussion of Italian wine and culture. Grab a glass with us. Chin chin. Well, welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm McKenna and I'm here with Elyse Wilson, and we're so grateful to have her today. She is the sommelier at Camerata Houston, which many of you I know are fans of. So welcome, Elyse. We're so grateful to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here and, chat a little bit with you.
Ditto. Would you be so kind as to just introduce yourself briefly and tell us about your background in wine?
So I am here in Houston, Texas, born and raised. I left for a few years, but ended up back here. And I actually just turned 36 last week. So, mentally I'm still in my, 20s, but...
Happy birthday. That's beautiful.
Thank you. And then, I actually started my wine career by going to culinary school. I was a chef for a little over a decade before I switched into the wine world. But my first kind of like dip into it was the course that they require at the culinary school as part of the degree program. And so, when I did have to make a career change, I had already kind of ignited that passion. And, wine and food go hand in hand. So it just seemed like a good transition for me.
That's fabulous. And you're originally from Houston.
Yeah, Sugar Land technically, but, Houston's quite large, lots of suburbs.
Wow, amazing. And so you were in culinary school, you said, and then you learned about the wine. Is that what kind of led you into working at Uchi and Houston's?
So Uchi was something that I went into because of the opportunity to work with such a fabulous restaurant group that puts their standards, having come from a culinary background, just being able to work for a restaurant that really prides themselves on creating amazing food and doing such a unique concept was kind of the draw at going into Uchi. I just wanted to work for a place that felt passionate that, cared as much as I do about this industry. And Houston's was just the kind of, after I left culinary school, I went to Miami to go to hospitality restaurant management school. And I started with Houston's just to get exposure to front of the house as part of that degree, because you're required to work in the industry for the hospitality restaurant management degree. So both just amazing companies that are, very well known for their training standards and kind of consistency. So I was just after trying to make sure that, again, I was working for places that felt as passionate about food and wine and sake for that sake as I do.
Yes, you are a certified sake professional as well, right?
I am. After starting with Uchi and already having done my Certified Sommelier and my WSET III, it just seemed pretty natural, not being super familiar with sake at the time, to kind of dive in, and I fell in love with it and ended up going to Japan and spending a whole bunch of time and money to go get the ASP certification, which is basically the level 2 and currently the highest level that John Gauntner, who's my sake mentor, offers.
Fantastic. Yeah, Advanced Sake Professional is ASP, I believe. And were you exploring the wine scene as well, or you were really just honing your sake knowledge? Did you notice anything with the wine industry there, or mostly just sake?
So when I went to Japan, it's a 5-day class for the certification. So we were going pretty much nonstop the whole time, plus the travel time in the end. So I didn't get a whole bunch of time outside of the course to really explore as much as I would have liked. My flight got back from Japan like 4 days before all international travel shut down worldwide for the pandemic. So it was kind of a weird time to be there. Like when I was walking around Tokyo, there was like no one out in the streets, like ghost town.
Oh,
Which,
yeah.
thinking of Tokyo was like New York City. It was like, what is happening?
That's wild. So, wow, the fact that you saw that live is amazing.
It was very strange. But so I didn't get to explore too much of the wine while I was there, since I was deeply enthralled in the certification program at the time. But I have been working with some Japanese wines here at Camerata. One of our things is kind of specializing in obscure grapes, obscure regions. And, the Japanese, one of their just cultural things is pride, and like taking pride in what they do and perfection of making the best quality thing that they can. So something I've noticed that's very interesting with the Japanese wine world is they're exploring using table grapes, premium quality table grapes, but a lot of the winemakers are not necessarily working with Vitis vinifera, and yet they're still coming out with these really beautiful wines.
That's very interesting. Are the wines like different structurally because of the skins of table grapes, or?
Yeah, I mean, so the two that I've had in the bar most recently were both Japanese rosés, but I will say, like, one of them, it was such a unique thing because the aromatics of these table grapes are so intense and so like ripe. So when you're like digging your nose into the glass, you're almost expecting like a little bit of sweetness from the rosé that I was carrying because of the intensity of just the like sweet fruit on the nose. And then it was a fully dry wine. Yeah, smelling cotton candy, kind of leads your nose into one, or your brain into thinking it's going to be one thing. And it was totally different on the palate.
Yeah, a lot of wines are attractive to new friends of wine that kind of smell sweet. And so you kind of like get in there, but then the wine offers you a dry, savory experience. And you're like, okay, this is highly attractive. But let's go there. So what year did you start working with Camerata?
So a month ago was my 3-year anniversary. So
that's wonderful. I know that making it 1 year in the restaurant scene is meaningful. So 3 years, obviously, I mean, in a particular location is pretty powerful story. And so what attracted you to Camerata, and how did you kind of make that transition from the previous restaurant groups?
I mean, I really, really loved Uchi. And, it was very bittersweet to depart from them. But one of my friends who was running Camerata, basically, I came by to see him one day and he was like, hey, I'm, having a baby with the wife and gonna go get a 9-to-5 job. And I was just kind of like, well, oh my gosh, who's taking over Camerata? And he was like, I don't know yet. And I just remember having this like sensation in my chest, because this was basically, as much as I love working with Uchi and Houston's, being able to really focus on the beverage side of things in terms of having time to study and create my own program and stuff. I was just like, Camerata sounds like a dream job. And I just remember feeling this like overwhelming sense of like, well, can I apply? I mean, the job just sort of fell in my lap. And again, it was a bittersweet thing because Uchi's such a great company to be a part of. And, they taught me so much working for them. But like I said, just being able to come and kind of do my own thing and put together my own wine program is something I've always really been passionate about. So
that's so cool. It's awesome. So for those who haven't been to Camerata before, and I am hopeful to go one day as well, but they're it's Houston, Texas. They're a neighborhood wine bar. They focus on beverages that are unique, just like Elyse said, and really speaking of like a sense of place and the person who made them. It's connected to Polly's, which is a fine dining restaurant. Is that right, Elyse?
So Polly's is quality-wise, their food is, I would say, up there with fine dining. They make everything from scratch, but they actually are, they've been around for 26 years and are kind of the famous neighborhood spot with counter service. But again, everything from scratch, really great quality.
Oh, that's amazing. So what's your kind of approach to your beverage program, and how are you balancing? Clearly, you have wines from all over the world. I know you just spent some time in New Zealand and Australia. You have Japanese rosés. We're here on the Italian Wine Podcast. So how this is so meta, like all the different things that you have. What's your approach and motivation? Is your goal to showcase as many regions as possible? Or are you really trying to draw the consumer through an experience of something they've never had before? Or do you balance both the familiar and the unique for them? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a balancing act because, you want to be careful not to scare away people that maybe don't feel comfortable jumping into, something they've never tried before. But, I focus very heavily on small production, family owned, put the people that put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. So a lot of people that come in that aren't familiar with us are definitely a little surprised when they don't recognize almost anything on the menu. But that's where kind of the fun comes in. We change our by the glass menu every single day, which is incredibly unique, as well as a lot of work.
Wow. Is it printed?
Yeah, so we print our menus every day for the by the glass menu. So the sections for the by the glass aren't, quite as like vast as maybe some of the other wine bars, but it's because we're rotating the wines daily. And, the benefits of the program is we're never serving, older wine. I'm never having to throw wine away because we basically sell the bottles that we opened yesterday for half off the next day at happy hour. So it's a really fun program, and there's always something unique to try. But, when we're constructing that daily menu and we're only offering maybe 4 or 5 glasses of white and 8 or 9 glasses of red per day, it's very much about like making sure to find that balance of like, all right, maybe I don't have a Pinot Noir specifically on the list today, but if a Pinot Noir drinker comes in, what 2 or 3 options on the red wines will fill that, a light and fruity red, a light and earthy red, and then maybe something a little more traditional, like a high-end glass of Burgundy for those people that are looking for that. And then go into kind of the medium body, full body. And again, part of the fun of the wine bar is when people come in looking for a specific grape is kind of introducing them to something similar that goes into hand in hand with what they're maybe looking for, but maybe never heard of before. And 9 out of 10 times we tend to win. But there's always, there's always certain people that just don't love that they can't get their glass of Chablis.
Really, just when Chablis is not available. There's plenty of other wine grapes that can have a conversation with Chablis at the very least.
And then being connected to Polly's, with Paul being an Italian guy and the owner of both Polly's and Camerata, we definitely have a very strong Italian wine program as well. So we do have a 14-page bottle list, so it's not just the by the glass list. And we definitely, Italy is one of the coolest places to bring in some of the obscure grapes because, there's over 10,000 grape varietals indigenous to Italy. So we always have a lot of fun bringing in some of the more obscure wines just of Italy.
The listeners are now on the edge of their seats. We must know, what are the obscure grape varieties that you're featuring maybe this month?
So one of my personal favorites, because I'm a little biased, I'm a white wine drinker. We have Timorasso on the menu right now, which a lot of people have never heard of, but it's predominantly grown in Piedmont, northern Italy, but there's several producers that have done it historically for just generations. And so some of those vines have been able to survive, but it's very small production, really beautiful white wine that can, have the acidity of a Riesling and then the body of like a Burgundy.
I had 3 of them last week.
Perfect.
I had 3 different Timorassos last week over the span of a couple days. Of course, Walter Massa, Dertona, but then a few other smaller producers. And it was such a treat to revisit the grape. It honestly tastes both familiar and exotic, all in one. Familiar meaning just I have it every day, all the time. It's delicious. For anyone listening who hasn't had a Timorasso in the last 4 weeks, please find one and enjoy it because it deserves to be enjoyed.
Yeah, it's great. I also can't remember the last time, if ever, that somebody's been like, oh yeah, I had 3 in 1 week. I'm like, that's amazing.
It's such a joy. That's so special. And then what other maybe indigenous grape varieties might you be educating your clients with?
So the other one I just got in yesterday, but I brought in before, Lacrima is a more southern Italy red grape varietal, but it's known for its intensity and power. But it's really, for me, kind of a fun grape because you don't see it. Historically, it was almost always used in blends. So you don't see it on its own a lot, but on its own with the producer that's putting in the energy to, care for it, it can create these really beautiful, fruit forward style of really big, bold wines, which, Italy historically is known for a lot of their more rustic styles. So it's kind of fun to find this grape that really can kind of showcase almost a juicy yet fully tannic.
Totally. What region or is it from Lazio, or are you doing from Marche for the Lacrima?
So the Lacrima is from Lazio, but I've had, years ago, like I said, I rotate the list so much. I've had different modelings of it.
Polly's obviously has that counter service that you spoke highly of. What are the food options within Camerata? Like, are people having bites? Are you doing full dinner? Like, what's the process if people want to come in and try a glass and then try a bite of something?
Yeah. So we definitely have a ton of people that come get wine from us to take to Polly's. We joke that it's like a one-way street. We don't really let people bring food from Polly's into Camerata, but mostly out of respect that, let's say somebody decides to buy like the $50 glass of Barolo I threw on the list for the night. They don't want somebody to come sit down next to them with like a big plate of food that's going to take away from the beautiful nose of that very nice glass of wine they're trying to enjoy. But you can definitely come order something by the glass and have a snack with us before, go have dinner at Polly's, come back for an after dinner drink.
I love this. It looks like bites and boards, but then Polly's is definitely if you're looking for the full meal, but kind of these like Iberico ham, Marcona almonds, goat cheese, some snackies to go with your drinks at Camerata. I love that.
Yeah, we definitely do a lot of charcuterie, boards and cheeses. And then the owner, Paul, knowing my, passion for food, was very kind. He let me put a few of my own recipes for snacks on the Camerata menu.
Is the cannellini dip yours?
Yes, so there's the lemon cannellini garlic dip, which is the vegan and gluten-free option, but it's tasty too. My staff jokes around that it's like Italian hummus, which,
pretty awesome.
But yeah, it's, it's anything that you put a hefty amount of roasted garlic puree and lemon zest into is,
I have a question. Is there kind of a richer, deeper motivation to the constancy of change on your by the glass list? Is this to kind of constantly keep it interesting for the regulars and everyone, but is there maybe a strategy in that constant change to stay continually updated with what's going on in the wine scene to give longevity to the program as a whole at Camerata? Like, is it like the sustainability of the program is rooted in this constant change, or is it more just to have more fun in the moment?
So it's definitely a little bit of both. So when I took over 3 years ago, I really wanted to maintain the traditions that had been set. Camerata was originally opened 11 years ago by a now master sommelier, David Keck. So I feel very lucky to have stepped into such, big shoes. But that was just, the original way that the program was set up by David was to have the ever rotating wine list. And so with that being the way the whole program is structured, like I said, with the way we do happy hour, I'm never having to throw away wine. Most wine programs have, like a spill percentage. It is like maybe once every 2 weeks that there's a glass of wine or a half glass I have to toss because nobody bought it on happy hour or something. So it is really interesting in that, but because of the way it's structured, it kind of is like this, revolving beast that's based off of the structure. And so just budget wise and trying to make, everybody happy because in addition to, the obscure grapes and obscure regions, we still have a lot of classic stuff. I'm not just going to box everybody out because as we talked about earlier, it's the balancing act, trying to keep everybody happy. But of course, it doesn't always work out. There's definitely people that get frustrated when they come in and they're like, I had this glass of wine here 2 weeks ago and it was so amazing. Do you have it? And I'm like, no, we definitely don't. And I'm sorry. So, there's definitely like some downfalls. But the goal is to hopefully then be like, well, if you love that wine, you should try this wine. And we put something else in front of them. And again, most of the time we end up winning. But there's definitely a little disappointment on occasion.
You're inherently generating desire with every single change. And I think that's extremely impactful. That's so awesome. I do have another question. From what you're seeing, you're clearly a global traveler and just came back from New Zealand and Australia, have been in Japan, everywhere.
what are you seeing that perhaps wine from anywhere in the world producers are doing to engage the next generation of wine drinkers in and amongst the popularity of cocktails? What innovations are you seeing from wine producers that you might be willing to share as an innovation on either marketing of wine or the stylistic choices of wine to engage the next generation?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously so many viewpoints that can go into that question. And, you know, in addition to the desire of cocktail programs, it's been pretty prevalent over the last couple of years that the younger generation specifically is really moved to a lot of non-alcoholic options, which has really thrown a lot of, wine predictions and sales goals and stuff kind of out of whack, because I don't think that was something that was ever really anticipated, 5-6 years ago, that there was going to be this non-alcoholic kind of movement, especially with, the younger, like 21-year-old crowd. I think the biggest thing I see just right off the bat of my head is, the movement of, there was obviously the natural wine movement that came in as like a way to create this funky new style of wines, which isn't really technically true since they were all the original style of winemaking. But you know what I mean? Reintroduce. It's like bringing the bell bottoms back, But what I've really noticed about that, the natural wine movement probably started anywhere, the big push for it all was in the last, 8 to 10 years or so. But over the last probably 3 or 4 years, a lot of these quote unquote natural funky wines, they've really just, a lot of these producers have just figured out more effective ways to prevent, bottle variation issues and day-to-day bottle variation issues. And they're coming up with these cleaner styles of these refreshing kind of fun natural wines, which again, that term is so broad and doesn't really have a legal definition. So it can be kind of confusing, but just having these wines that are minimal intervention and, letting nature kind of do its work, but don't end up having a flawed final product, which in the nicest way possible, 8 to 10 years ago, the majority of the quote unquote natural wines were a lot of flawed wines. And I think the reason that came to mind is because I've been watching this past year our orange wine sales, or skin contact wines, which historically are from the northern Italy area and have been made for thousands of years, have apparently come back into fashion. Our orange wine sales are up tremendously. I cannot tell you how many times a week I have somebody that's like, what's the orange wine by the glass? People are loving the orange wine, skin contact, white wines that have been in the market. And I think a lot of that is because they've gotten away from these like super pithy, super tannic styles where there's just such variation between, the light maceration and the heavy ones, but there are a lot more cleaner and crisper, refreshing styles of orange wine coming out.
Yeah, it sounds like that authenticity by way of clarity, freshness, like kind of the direction. So I think that's really well said. Thank you so much for sharing that. Sadly, we're out of time. We have first the world learning about you and learning about Camerata, and I see that we have a bunch of mutual Instagram friends, which is super fun, like Dan Petrosky, shout out, Casa Pichado, Franz Haas, so at Skurnik, pretty fun. To see the connections there, and I can't wait to hopefully meet you in person someday.
Yeah, definitely reach out if you're ever coming to Houston.
1,000%. I want to thank you so much for your time and sharing your expertise with us. And cheers. Chin chin. Salute.
Appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. And, everybody go out and get those Italian Ramados. Learn about that skin contact orange wine.
That's right.
Tante grazie. Thanks so much for being here with me today. Remember to catch our episodes weekly on the Italian Wine Podcast, available everywhere you get your pods. Salute.